Hello, friends. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog and another Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. This was an exciting week for movies, for me at least, because our favorite local theater, the Academy, played Raiders of the Lost Ark, 1981, directed by Steven Spielberg, one of my all-time favorite movies. I don't know how old you guys are, but this movie came out when I was 5 years old, and it was just perfect. I have probably watched it at least 50 times in my life, and it just gets better every time I watch it. 10 out of 10. Perfect movie, required viewing. Does it have little tiny flaws? Sure. I mean, I know I just said the word perfect, but what is perfect? Of course, it has little flaws. I'm not going to quibble about them or even call them out right now because I just have so much good feeling for this movie. If for some reason you've never seen Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I would find so incredibly hard to believe, it is the first of the Indiana Jones series of movies. I personally have only seen 3 Indiana Jones movies because I watched the original trilogy as a kid growing up, and then I got pretty burned when they released the Star Wars prequels and totally turned off of that nonsense. And when the more recent Indiana Jones movies started coming out, I had a momentary kind of, ooh, I could revisit my childhood and go watch those movies. And then I thought, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. I'm gonna pretend these didn't even happen. There's just an original trilogy as far as I'm concerned. And yes, I know I'm having a break with actual reality about that, but I think that's easier than watching a newer entry into a franchise I love and just being completely repulsed by it. So all that said, Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is the very first movie in this whole franchise, is of course the very best one. It's downhill from there. Not to say that the first 2 sequels aren't good, but they aren't 10 out of 10 perfect movies. What's so great about Raiders of the Lost Ark? It's an incredible adventure story. It's got an incredible cast. All of the actors are incredible. The writing is great. The action and adventure and stunt sequences are incredible. The story is a total winner. As a Jew, I gotta love, let's go fry some Nazis who are trying to steal an ancient Jewish artifact. That just, tugs at my heartstrings in the right way. And it just all around is a complete stunner of a movie. We've now watched it enough times as a family that we were able to go into the theater, chit-chatting about, well, what's your favorite scene and what are you looking forward to watching this time? And, the kids know the movies front and back just like we do. And it's just such a fun experience to have movies like that in your life that you've seen that many times, that you know every single line, you know every single detail of the movie, but then you get to watch it again and enjoy it all over again, and there's nothing taken away by the fact that you've already seen it a million times or 10 times or however many times you've seen it. So Raiders of the Lost Ark is just super like that for me, and I think probably for a lot of you guys as well. Also, I can't let a mention of this movie go by without talking about, of course, the iconic opening scene of the movie, possibly the best opening scene of any movie ever. A complete masterpiece. It's just fantastic. Again, like I said, there's a couple little things, little very technical details that, I would change if I had that magic wand, but I don't need to. And it's just a perfect movie. And I'm sorry to say, but my forever favorite part is going to be when that adorable little monkey gives the Nazi salute. It's pretty hilarious. And I did find out in my research this time that it took them over 50 takes to get that darling little monkey to do that. So there's your little piece of Raiders of the Lost Ark trivia. What else did we watch this week, though, besides that one? Pretty interestingly, Raiders was produced by Frank Marshall, and I was looking at his catalog, very impressive catalog of films he's produced. And the movie that he worked on before Raiders of the Lost Ark, he actually executive produced The Warriors from 1979, directed by Walter Hill. Total favorite of both Sean and myself. And we realized that the kids had never seen it. And so we were like, let's show the kids The Warriors this week. So we actually watched that one last night and had a total blast. It's such a fun movie. If you haven't seen this one, which a lot of people haven't seen, it is a action thriller, I guess, about New York street gangs. The movie opens with kind of a meeting of all the different street gangs of New York at the time. They're in the Bronx, I think, and one guy is calling for all of them to kind of get together as separate gangs because they could rule the city because they outnumber the police if they just join forces. And then one of the gang members shoots the guy who's kind of trying to bring everyone together. And the whole scene erupts into chaos. And in the chaos, our heroes, if you will, the gang that we're tracking, which is the Warriors, get blamed for this guy's death. And so they then are on a mission, if you will, to get home. They're from Coney Island, and they've got to ride the subway across town, which on its face seems like a really weird kind of like it's an adventure, the subway riding across town, but it's the subway riding across New York City, which is huge. I think it's like a 25-mile journey or something. And a lot of these guys, in New York at the time, never left their own neighborhoods. So it's entirely plausible that a subway ride across the city is like this totally monumental adventure for them. And of course, the other gangs are seeking them out because they think that these guys killed this gang leader of all of the guys. So it's a kind of interesting adventure kind of story as kind of the basis for it. But really, the really interesting thing about this movie is the kind of artistic conception of what these different street gangs in New York might look like. And it's completely detached from what actual street gangs look like. And it's this film interpretation. They almost feel like they should break out into song and dance numbers. Their outfits are so coordinated. There's a gang called the Baseball Furies that wear baseball uniforms, like old-timey ones, and then have their faces painted really graphically. They chase the Warriors around with baseball bats, as you would imagine. There's a gang that like they look more like the Temptations or something than like a gang. Like they have these like shiny purple satin vests. They look like they're about to, get into a song and dance thing together. There's a gang that are called the Punks, but they're like wear denim overalls and roller skates and chase the Warriors around in that outfit. There's a gang of like mimes. There's all these different gangs represented in the thing. And it just like, they just get better and better kind of as you go and more outrageous and just totally wonderful, concepts of what the costumes of these gangs should be, or kind of the idea of what these gangs should be. To me, that's the best part of the movie. The fighting scenes, the sort of running away from someone's scenes, the adventure chase type of stuff, it's okay. The actual personalities of the characters in the Warriors gang and the actors and the way they deliver their lines and stuff is pretty uninteresting and kind of has this amateurish feel about it. But I feel like it works for the film because ultimately guys in a street gang are kind of, it's like a group of guys who aren't really that tough, who kind of want to feel tougher than they are. So they band together into their little gang unit, but a lot of them are really insecure or shy or whatever. So it works that it kind of has this amateurish feeling to it, and the actors don't necessarily feel like they're doing the best job. It actually serves the movie pretty well, and it makes it have this kind of more authentic feeling in a way. It might just be that I've got a soft spot in my heart for a movie that's kind of cheesy, but The Warriors, it's a great one. And I learned in my research for today that apparently Ronald Reagan was a huge fan of this movie and screened it at Camp David. So now you know. Maybe it fueled some of his anti-gang policy. Who knows? But the Gipper was a fan of the Warriors. So there you go. Also this week, we finally got to watch the animated version of Watership Down from 1978, directed by Martin Rosen, of course, based on Richard Adams's book of the same name. This was a really fun one to watch with the kids. I just recently finished listening to the audiobook, and I really, really wanted to revisit the movie, mainly because I've been having such a good time listening to the book. And wanting to share that story with the kids. And I think I actually made a mistake in watching it so close after finishing the book because I'm one of those people, if I compare the book to the movie, I will almost always say that the book is better. And so I don't like to compare them. I like to kind of view each media as its own separate thing and, kind of judged separately and let them stand on their own instead of up against each other because the source material is almost always going to win, in quotes, as far as I'm concerned. So I try to kind of separate them. And I usually won't watch the movie so close after finishing a book for that reason. But I was super excited to watch this one with the kids. And so as a result of watching it, I think too soon, I was sitting there going, oh, I can't believe they left that out. Or, oh, why did they change that thing from the book? So I wasn't disappointed per se, but I do wish I had left a little bit more buffer room in there. It is a pretty faithful retelling of the story in the book. And I love the characterizations and the voice actors in the film, especially John Hurt as Hazel, and Zero Mostel does such a fantastic job as Kahar, the gull who helps them. Really great performances from all of the voice actors and really beautiful animation. I love both in the kind of, the rabbits have their own mythology, and when they're talking about that in the story, they use a totally different style of animation from the main part of the story, which is really cool. And it really flows well with the way that the book kind of postures the mythical stories versus the real-time story, if you will, that you're engaging in as a reader. So I really enjoyed both of the different stylized animation styles that they used. And I really like that the movie doesn't shy away from how bloody the book is. I think a lot of people remember Watership Down as like the cartoon that's not for kids. And rightly so. It is very violent and very bloody and has some very sad moments in it. But I think ultimately it tells a really great story. And I think it's really worth it. And I don't think it's traumatizing for kids. Now, I mean, I personally wasn't traumatized by it. Maybe you were. I think it feels like it could be traumatizing to kids from an adult perspective. But to me, if you stick through the narrative, if you go for the whole story, it resolves itself in such a way that you wouldn't end up being traumatized by it, if that makes sense. I think if a kid watched just pieces of it, they definitely would be like, whoa, what is this? But if they were to sit through the whole story, I don't think it's a problem. But again, I let my kids watch horror movies, so to each their own on that. But it's a really fantastic interpretation. The kind of moment is there's an Art Garfunkel song featured in the middle of the movie, which is just, I could go without it, but it's also an animated movie from 1978. So not too surprising that it's got a signature song in the middle of it by a kind of past their prime singer. What else did we watch this week? I gotta look at my notes. Whoa. Hannibal, 2001, directed by Ridley Scott. The kids, of course, after watching Silence of the Lambs, were like, is there a sequel to this movie? And I said, oh yeah, there is. So we went for Hannibal. Also starring Anthony Hopkins, of course, as Hannibal Lecter. But we do not have Jodie Foster coming back for the second movie. So instead, it's Julianne Moore in the role of Clarice Starling. And it's kind of interesting because Julianne Moore does a really, really good job. And I think it's like impossible to fill Jodie Foster's like Oscar-winning shoes from that role. And it's always awkward when they swap out the actor for a character and you're like, do I really buy that this new actor is the same character that was portrayed by this other actor in this other movie? And for the first 10 minutes that Julianne Moore is on screen, I think you do this kind of like comparison stuff with Jodie Foster, but then you just kind of get into it and she really takes the role and owns it and makes it her own thing while still staying faithful to Jodie Foster's rendition, if you will. So it's one of those kind of rare places where they managed to swap the actor out, and I feel like it doesn't actually detract from the experience of the movie. This one also has Ray Liotta in it and Gary Oldman, who is basically unrecognizable under a pile of special effects makeup, as a guy who's been like tortured and well, he's defaced himself under instruction from Hannibal Lecter. So I was going to say that Hannibal Lecter defaced him, but it's a little more complicated than that. It's a decent sequel. It's fun. It's scary. It's gross. It definitely has some moments where you're like, whoa. And there's one scene near the end, which I'm not going to say any spoilers about, but if you've seen the movie, you know the scene I'm talking about. Whoo! There's a doozy near the end of that movie. Yeah. Not going to say what happens, but if you enjoyed Silence of the Lambs and you're looking for more of the same, Hannibal definitely delivers. And the last movie that we watched this week was Event Horizon from 1997, directed by Paul W.S. Anderson, starring Sam Neill and Lawrence Fishburne. This is a pretty cool, a little bit weird, and a little bit dated science fiction horror movie. The basic concept is there is a ship called the Event Horizon, which has a, what do they call it? A gravity drive engine that allows it to like fold space and warp from one point to another. And the ship went missing years ago, and now it's reappeared, I think near Venus or Neptune. It must be near Neptune. It's pretty far out. And so our guys have to go and go to the ship where it has been found and find out what's going on with this ship. And when they get there, they realize that it was able to use the gravity drive, but instead of just like opening like a warp hole to kind of like another part of our universe, it's like it opened a warp hole to hell. And now the ship is full of all kinds of bad stuff. I'm not going to say if it's like monsters or haunted or what, but there's some grody stuff in that ship, and our heroes, as they encounter the ship and deal with it, become more and more consumed by what's going on in this derelict spaceship. So hopefully I haven't spoiled that movie. It is really pretty fun. It's got pretty good writing. The first part feels a lot stronger to me than the second part of the movie. I really like the build up to when they are going out to find the Event Horizon, actually more than what transpires on board Event Horizon. The other problem with the movie is it suffers from, it's 1997 and they really tried to stack a lot of computer generated effects in the movie, and boy, they don't look good. Practical stuff has held up incredibly well over time, and the computer stuff just, it's just like things floating on screen or digital fire, or there's like a bunch of digital water stuff that happens. It just doesn't look good. And, I get it. At the time, it was like, hey, this is, new computer graphics, cutting edge technology, but it just has not aged well. And Sean and I have kind of decided there's sort of a rule of thumb is like 90s and early 2000s. Unless there's a huge budget, it's gonna have crappy computer effects in it. Once we get past like 2010, I feel like the computer stuff has gotten so much better that it's not so horrendously obvious all the time. And of course, before 1990, they were barely trying it because the tech just wasn't there. But yeah, watch out for those 90s and I guess they call it the aughts movies with a lot of computer generated imagery. So like sci-fi stuff from them is going to be, I wish they had built models of the ships for this movie instead of making computer renders of them. So I'll leave it there though. You guys know I feel a little bit grumpy about computer effects. What's coming up this next week? Oh, tonight we're going to the movies again. We get to go see Throne of Blood at the Hollywood Theater. I am so excited. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, based on one of my favorite plays of all time, Macbeth, in case you didn't know. But I'll talk about that movie next week on the next episode of the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. All right, you guys, thanks so much for watching. I will be back in a couple more days with another episode. Until then, stay safe out there and take care.